Alright, welcome everybody. It is exactly 5 o'clock, and since I'm German, we're going to start on time today. My name is Niclas Huschenbeth, and this is a new edition, or let's say the next edition of the show Premium Coaching, in which I take a look at premium member games here on Chess24 and analyze them and help you to improve your game. So we only have an hour, and I noticed I did the show a few times now. An hour I can really pump through, I have a lot of energy, and I can get through a lot of games, and afterwards kind of my energy level declines. And also, once again, I have like some sports today, so we're gonna do 1 hour and go get through as many games as possible. So let's go right ahead and start with the first game by sdbaets. I saw sdbaets a lot in the chat in the previous shows, so I'm happy to analyze one of his games, and I definitely also want to reward in a way that he's been so active and participating. That's great stuff. All right, so let's go through it. This is a 15-minute game, and he was playing against Luis Portugal with the white pieces. And he includes some comments, which is always good stuff, so I can answer those comments and give better feedback. So it is the Sicilian, and which Sicilian will be the knight of my favorite, and he goes for a right line, bishop g5. Awesome. e6, f4, bishop e7, queen f3, queen c7, castle. At this moment I'm out of theory, but I like this position, felt confident. Okay, I'm not sure how I feel about the statement, because really the theory only begins right here. I've made a video series in German against the whole Sicilian, and I cover, of course, this line as well. You could maybe go into an ebook here on Chess24, the German ebook, and you could go through some lines here if you want to check these variations out. Okay, let's see what happens here. h6, bishop h4. Yeah, this is the way to go here, bishop h4, and now knight takes e4. This looks strange. I've never seen this move before, so that's not a good sign. Knight takes e4. Wow. Okay. It should not be good. It should not work. Yeah, I don't know. Could you play queen takes e4? Okay, if bishop takes e7, of course knight takes c3 is the idea by black. I mean, even this, I could imagine, even this looks really good, actually. Well, there's still queen takes f4 check, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would have really liked this particular line. Yeah, okay, this is not too clear. Black can take on f4 with check. But also knight takes e4, bishop takes h4, and something like queen g4 one can consider, hitting both the pawn on g7 and the bishop on h4. Okay, let's see what you did, but this should not work for black. Knight takes e4. It's funny because I thought I'd seen most moves in these lines. Alright, queen takes e4, bishop takes h4, knight f5. During the game, I felt quite proud of spotting this move. Now, yeah, this looks also really, really nice, actually. It might be, in fact, the best way to continue here, also because of having this option of knight d5 as well. So, yeah, I like this. Definitely good choice. Bishop e7. And the more I think about it, what about knight d5 here, in fact? Going knight d5 directly. This looks also quite promising. Just hitting the queen. Queen needs to move. And then, let's say a5. And then playing knight f5 the next move. Also something to consider. I'm not quite sure here about the consequence after, for example, a move like castle. But it's also something to consider. It looks nice, but maybe your move is in fact stronger. Alright, bishop e7. takes on g7, king f8, knight h5, knight d7. At this point, I didn't really see a clear plan. I decided to move my queen away from the threat knight c5. However, at this point, I don't really see a constructive plan. My knight on the h file looks passive, my white bishop doesn't have a natural square, and black seems to have a good chance of starting an attack on the queen side. As you notice, I did not see any potential plan for white. How should I approach this position? Your position is great, okay? Your knight on h5 is awesome. Black has lost his right to castle. You're doing perfectly fine here. Very nice position for you, okay? So knight c5 is not a threat, it's just attacking your queen. You can just move your queen away and then go from there. And also you saying that the bishop doesn't have a natural square, that's all fine, really. For example, you could think about putting the bishop on the long diagonal. Actually, this is something I would consider right away. Let's say g4, and just putting a bishop on g2. And if knight c5 here, you can just answer with queen d4, hitting the rook on g8, rook on h8. Black has to play rook g8, and now you can probably just play bishop g2. I cannot imagine black being able to take here on g4, really. The black king is just in huge trouble in this position. And here bishop d7, I think bishop takes b7 would be a nice little strike, stopping black from castling in the most violent fashion and then opening up this idea of playing rook g8. But this is just a sample line. So you play queen d4 right away, that also looks fine. And yeah, you play g3 next move. I would have kept the queen for now on e4 and maybe played g4 right away. Didn't see anything wrong with it. So really what you want to do here is you want to open up the position against the black king so you can attack. Because black is stuck with the king in the center, black's king is not feeling safe. So you want to attack it as quickly as possible. Alright, but queen d4 seems fine, rook g8, g3. And now queen c5. No, don't exchange queens. I traded queens because my opponent was playing very fast and confident. He had a lot more time on his clock and I felt it was time to simplify. No. You are helping black so much by trading off queens. His king is not safe. It's stuck in the center and will not castle this game and has already moved, right? So that means you want to keep the queens on the board to be able to attack the black king. Also, there's this general saying, of course it's not always true, but it goes like this. If black is able to trade queens, or a game in general lasts more than, let's say, 30 or 40 moves in the Sicilian, black is going to win. It's just about saying that in the end game, usually black is fine, of course. There are other, you need to consider many factors, but also here black is fine because black has the bishop pair as well. So you need to keep the queens on the board. Definitely. Just play a move like queen d3. You're going to threaten knight e4. And go maybe after the d6 pawn. You know, you're doing so well here. And everything changes after you trade off queens. Alright, let's keep going here. Bishop e2. Why not put the bishop on g2? This seems to be the natural square for the bishop here. Long diagonal. This seems to make more sense. And not allowing black to put his bishop on a long diagonal. b5, bishop f3. So it's like, why did he play bishop g2? Why did he play bishop e2 first? It's like almost losing a move. d5. When he played d5, I felt disappointed at first because my knight was still awkward on h5. Black had control over the center. A bishop pair and more natural square for his pieces. I felt I couldn't allow this and decided to strike in the center. I was happy to find f5. Yeah, f5 is interesting, certainly. But again, your knight is not that bad on h5, really. Your opponent cannot attack and it's taking away squares on f6 and g7. It's not that bad. You don't need to get it back into the game right away. But f5 is certainly interesting. f5, rook g5, takes on e6, takes e6, rook h f1. Yeah, possibly you could have prepared f5 first by playing a move like rook h f1 here. Oh, this is not your move. Nah, that's why. And then if black plays something, then you can still follow up with f5. Not sure. Okay. But the game continued like this, but now black had the possibility to step aside. Okay. h4 looks good. Yeah, I was looking some tactics here with knight takes d5, but it seems to be not working. Yeah, bishop takes d5, black just takes, and this is not enough. And what else? No. Okay, h4. But here, after rook e5, I would certainly consider knight takes d5 now. E takes d5 and rook takes d5. Because now black cannot take. You take back with check and hit the rook on a8 and win it. And black has to deal with the threat on the rook. Probably rook takes h5 is possible though. But here I think you can be quite happy. Rook takes h6. Or you can also think about something like bishop d5 check, king g7, rook f7 check, king g6, and rook e5 threatening h5 checkmate, which seems almost unstoppable here. And also threatening the bishop on e7, just a sample line. So maybe knight takes d5 works here. Another idea is that after rook e3, you can probably just take on c5. Bishop takes c5, bishop takes a8, and you have 1-2 pawns. And if rook takes f3, you can take on c8 with check and then takes on f3. And all seems to work out perfectly for white. So keep an eye on those tactics. You know, I always like to say check candidate moves. Check moves that take something. That's a general rule of thumb. Always just a brief look. Knight takes c5, bishop takes c5. You know, you can go over this in a matter of seconds sometimes. And of course, intuition also helps here. But in general, just check the moves real quick and then you can move on. Here it seems like knight takes d5 was possible. All right, rook fe1, bishop d6, and now knight takes d5. Nice, now you found it. Good stuff. Okay. Rook takes e1, rook takes e1, rook a7. To be honest, at this point I felt that white has some good chance to maybe win, but I had no idea what to do. I couldn't see a plan, so my question would be, how should I approach this position? What should I have been thinking about? Again, you're wondering about the plan. Well, you just have a one pawn. All you need to do is just secure your position and stay active. But you're a pawn up, you don't have to do much. You just have to convert it now, right? In general here also I would say try to split the bishop pair if possible. The bishop pair is always an asset, or can be in many positions. So if you have a chance somehow to exchange a knight against a bishop, or maybe a bishop against a bishop, you can do so. There's a question in the chat, what if black plays bishop b7 instead of rook b8? Well, black... Oh, that was a little bit earlier. Let's go back just real quick here. In this position probably, bishop b7. Yeah, that would be a better move, that's true. Unless I have rook takes c5, I'm not sure. I might have rook takes c5, bishop takes f3, and now rook e5 or, yeah, rook. This is a lot to calculate, guys, but I think this is looking good because whenever I move whenever there's a counterattack against either rook, I can also attack against, again, the bishop, right? So for example, bishop g2, just rook f2. So that seems to work out for white. Let's go back to the game. So what should you do? Knight d4 is completely fine. Of course, you always want to find the simplest way, right? And sometimes that also involves some calculation. But knight d4 seems fine. King f7, rook f1. Yeah, that's all fine. Rook c7. Okay. Here you can maybe target the pawn on e6 a little bit with bishop g4. That would be a move that I would consider. But you play king d2. Not sure why you're moving your king here. It's maybe not necessary, but okay, king d2. Bishop e5, b3. I would rather play c3 because because with b3 you're weakening your dark squares and you don't have a dark square bishop. So as a general rule of thumb, if you don't have the bishop to control the squares, well, then you want to put the pawns on the other color. And knight a4 seems to be not a problem because of knight d3 here. So c3 I would like much better. All right, let's keep going. b3, knight, oh, excuse me, b3, knight, rook d7 check, knight d3, king e7, knight f4. Okay, takes. Okay, we're still a pawn up. That's all fine. But it seems black has made some progress here in the last move. So seems you could have played more precise. Okay, bishop e4. This is good. And now king d2. Yeah, we want to exchange a pair of bishops here, or just, yeah, exchange a bishop of black. If bishop f5 though, black can just step aside with bishop b7, but we want to keep this in mind. And this will not be easy, of course. You have an extra pawn, but will not be easy to convert, because black has the bishops. All right. h5, now bishop f5, rook d7. Oh, there's the possibility, the opportunity to exchange bishops, and you do so. Great. That's good. Rook d5. Okay, now you just want to create a passed pawn here, right? So you could think about just rook g1, but maybe there's still rook d4. You played rook e1. Okay. Check. King f2. King d6. And now rook e4. Yeah, that's good. And now g4. Why not g4? I think it would be time to create a passed pawn here with g4. But okay, you also don't need to hurry, really. Your position is just really good at this point. So king e2, now your opponent exchanges rooks, which just doesn't give him any counterplay anymore. And here saying, no, now it's all time trouble and not really interesting anymore. Oh, so it ended in a draw. Okay. Well, I guess I won't have a look at it if it's not interesting anymore and just a time trouble blunderfest. Yeah, as a general takeaway here, to exchange queens is a big decision usually, and you want to evaluate different factors. For example, king safety. And in this case, your king safety was so much better than your opponent's, and king safety, the side which king is safer, wants to keep the queens on the board because it allows for possible attacks. And without the queens, of course, king safety is not such a big factor. Then in the end game, you won a pawn with a nice little tactic, and then it seemed to slip a little bit out of your hands, but you managed to exchange bishops, and then you had a winning position. But of course, this is not a classical game, and at some point time became the most important factor. All right, thanks for sending it in. I hope you got some insight here, and I'm gonna go to the next game. And this game is by Chen Yuan. Probably mispronounced that. And it's also a pretty long game, so we have to speed up because I want to do more than just a couple of games. So she's saying, in this game I played white, the time control was 1 hour 40 for 40 moves plus 30 minutes to move 60, and then 50 minutes for the rest of the game. Really long game. Let's see what happened here. Another Sicilian, and Chen Yuan is playing with the white pieces, I believe. Okay, here knight takes d4. Yeah, it seems like black's tricking a little bit around with the move orders. Knight c6 is unusual, and it allows white to go for the Maroczy here. Actually, what I would recommend to you, playing c4, knight c3. Because if black gives you this opportunity, and you can just take advantage of it and have a nice solid edge without any risks. I was surprised that my opponent took, because usually he plays the knight, and I was definitely happy that I don't have to play the knight of. Queen takes d4. How to play on this position, I developed my pieces by hand. I didn't have a real idea. I think you're doing fine here. Bishop c4, this all looks very natural. Bishop e3, okay. Queen c7. Bishop b3, okay. That's also fine. You don't need to react to that yet. Here, personally, I would castle queenside. I'm just a big fan of attacking and just pushing my pawns forward here on the king side, and seems to be easy to play. You have the queen very nicely placed on d4 already. This looks great. But of course, also after castle, you're doing fine. This may be also a matter of taste. I tried to put some pressure at the d6 pawn. In addition to that, I thought I'm just up 3 tempos because this king side is undeveloped. Is it really helpful to try increasing the pressure on the pawn? Yeah, absolutely. Rook d1, completely natural move, putting the rooks in the center on the half-open d-file. Rook d8, f3. Well, f3 seems to be a little bit too slow. This is more a move to stabilize the center, but you don't need to do it here. You have a huge lead in development. You want to open up the position, play f4, and play e5 or play f5, something like that. You want to open as quickly as possible before black finishes his development. So f3, I have to criticize. This is not the way to go. Play in the center here, play actively, play f5 or e5. Of course, you might need to prepare this first. Also, as a different idea, I'm just seeing this, a4 could be also a nice move here to threaten this pawn. Usually black wants to respond with b4 in this case, but here, not sure if this is possible. Probably not. If b4, queen takes b4, d5, you can answer with queen b6, and this is just an extra pawn. So a4 is nice because black has to take probably, and then there's this long-term weakness on a6. Here you can, for example, already create some problems for black. So a4 looks really nice for white. This is already, yeah, super bad for black. a4, I think, the more I look at it, the more I like it, even instead of f4, and probably even a move earlier already in this position, a4. Just trying to open up files, trying to get into black's position because you're having a huge lead in development. All right, knight f6, rook d2. Yeah, I don't think this is doing that much right now because, of course, it looks nice to travel on the d-file, but your queen is in front, right? That's, for starters, it's not optimal. And then, well, the bishop is just defending the pawn d6, and you can't really take it anyway. So that just seems to be the wrong plan here. Still here, a4, I'm sure, would be fabulous for white. Rook d2, bishop e7, rook fd1, and castle. I was frustrated after he completed his development. I think I missed something moves ago. Yeah, we talked about this already. Now queen b6. Yeah, queen b6 is interesting. Maybe even still here a4, but you don't have as much of an advantage anymore, of course. Black has managed to finish his development. Queen b6, queen b8, bishop f4. I want to provoke e5. Yeah, great. This is good. I like that a lot. Provoke e5 so you can control the d5 square. Yes, now you have weakened, black has weakened the d5 square, and this is great position advantage. Knight d7. I missed knight d7 because now my opponent just exchanged my bishop. Yeah, that's okay. Of course, this is not desirable necessarily, but it's also not the end of the world. So don't worry about it too much. Still, even though black gets rid of his bad bishop, also you need to realize that the bishop is a good defender of the pawn on d6. And now the d6 pawn is more of a target. Knight c5. And now bishop d5. Yeah, that's fine. Could also consider knight d5. I assume, well, I like bishop d5 to get a knight to d5 eventually. And that's what is happening here. Knight d5. Yeah, I like that his position is passive. You have great position advantage here. All your pieces are in good squares. This is great position. Knight d5, queen d8, queen g3. Yeah, I would keep the queens here on the board. King h8. And now knight b4. You know, a move that is really grabs my attention here is the move b4. And really putting this knight, restricting this knight so much. The knight on b7 is terrible now. Your knight on d5 is perfect, so I'm not sure why you're moving it away. The knight is perfect. All you need to make sure of that, well, black cannot exchange it, and it will black take some time to exchange this knight, something like knight d8, knight d6, knight c7, or knight c6, knight e7, but this will take some time. In the meantime, you can try to create something on the queen side. For example, you could put this pawn on c3, there it's nice and protected, and then maybe play something like a4, rook a1, and then put on some pressure on this pawn on a6. Okay, so knight b4 I'm not a big fan of. Queen b6 check, king h1. Yeah, you just have helped black right now, right? You have helped him to improve the queen position and the rook position pretty much. And you're putting your knight on a worse square. The knight belongs on d5. That's the best square on the board for the knight right now. That's beautiful outpost. So don't move the knight away. It seems you're a little bit... it seems like you don't know what to do here. You're just moving the knight around. Queen c6. After queen c6, I had a little time on McClung. I started to worry because my opponent's defense seems to hold. Well, you haven't done anything in the last moves except for moving around your knight. So you haven't done anything to attack your opponent's defense. You haven't improved your position at all, whereas black has. So that's just what it is. Queen f2, queen c5. At this moment I wasn't sure about trading queens, so when is it good to exchange him, when not? Yeah, you still have an edge in the endgame. You wouldn't like to take on c5 though, because then black could take with the d pawn, so that was a good decision. But you just always have to check, how do I evaluate the position without the queens or with the queens on the board? What is better for me, right? We just talked about in the last game about king safety, and there are also other factors. Also to keep more potential on the board, and also your personal taste. Do you like queens on the board? Do you like to play with queens, or rather do you like to play an endgame? So that's just a matter of style as well. Somebody is asking, didn't queen takes queen win material, but where? Here queen takes c5 doesn't seem to win material because black can take on c5 with the pawn. And this seems to be completely fine for black. Well, still a little bit more pleasant for white with the knight on d5, but at least black has gotten rid of the weak pawn on d6. Alright, king g1, king g8, knight c3. b4, now you take on c5, at least black can take with the d pawn, knight b5. The advantage got lower for me. I tried to get as fast to 40th move as I could. The advantage probably mean time-wise. Okay, knight b7. Still some nice pressure here against the pawn, but really the question is, how much is this? And I think even here I would have liked to put the knight back on d5. c3. I like c3, yeah, that's a good move. To get the knight back to d5 once again. King e6. And now a3, okay. Yeah, I like that. b4, Yeah, this is... Okay, now the knight gets to d4, well, okay. And you push b5. Rook b7 and b6. I think I misplayed the position again because now his knight has an outpost on d4 and don't know how to increase the pressure on him. Well, yeah, the knight is on d4, but look at your constellation here. Outpost on d5 plus protected pass pawn by the knight on b6. So this looks pretty promising, even though a lot of work still has to be done. So I don't think you misplayed the position here. I think you did a lot of things right here in the last couple of moves. Yeah. I think a lot of things went your way here, so I don't agree with your assessment here. Rook c8, rook a1, g6, okay. Rook a7. So I like that you're exchanging one pair of rooks here, because then black has even less counterplay because the one rook obviously needs to look over the b pawn. Rook c2, knight a5, king f2, f5. I haven't gotten a clue about what was going on because he was still comfortable in his defense. Well, yeah, black is holding on, but black is super passive, so you can just slowly improve your position, approach with your king, and probably just win, honestly. King e2. Why not king e3? It just seems a little bit more logical. But anyways, knight b3, rook c7. Okay, I don't know why you play rook c7 here. Would be quite careful with such a move. You're offering to go into the knight endgame. And this is not winning immediately because black stops the pawn. And now black is probably just ready to collect this pawn here. Knight e6. And you still might have some winning chances, but maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, this doesn't look too much anymore. And also knight takes c7, maybe that was your idea? To then go back to d5. But I'm just saying in general, you should be very careful. And here you're exchanging a passive piece of black against your active piece. And I don't think there was any need for that. You could have definitely pressed on without exchanging rooks. Look how passive the rook is on b7. So I really don't think there was any need to play rook c7. Just rook c8, bring your king closer, and go from there. And if black plays something like knight c5, maybe that was what you were afraid of. Well, you can play king e3. And if knight d7, then you can play rook c7. If you really want to do that. Okay, still even here we need to check what's happening here. But yeah, my general feeling is that rook c7 was not necessary. And this knight endgame might not be too clear. Knight c5, rook takes b7, knight takes b7. You're saying, yeah, I thought this position is just a draw. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, this actually looks pretty good. King d3, king f7. King f7 seems to be the wrong direction for black to go. Probably black needs to play king d7. But if you think that this position is a draw, why do you exchange rooks, right? Then keep the rooks on the board because you have so much more potential and so much more ways to try something, okay? King f7, king, yeah, now you just bring the king closer, obviously. Knight f6 check, here you just picked up the h7 pawn. Okay, yeah. I felt I'm winning here because I picked up a pawn for free. Yeah, you are winning here. You're up a pawn, you have a beautiful pawn on b6. And the game was over. After the game I felt really bad because my advantage slipped away in the beginning. That influenced my play later because even 5 moves later and even in time pressure I thought about how could I have increased my pressure. You won! That's what's important. So I hope you didn't feel too bad. And yeah, that happens often that one knows one has a good position. That's what happened to you after the opening. You knew you had great position, great lead in development. You couldn't capitalize on it. And then the whole game, you were thinking about what could I have done? Well, let it go. You can think about it later after the game. You can analyze it in depth. But during the game, there's no point. It's just a waste of energy. Focus on the present moment. Focus on what you can do in that position in front of you because what's behind you is already, well, done. There's nothing you can do to change it. That's just how it is. You can learn from it later, you can analyze it later, but during the game, just concentrate and think about what you can do in your next move, right? So that's my advice to that. All right, thanks for the game. I think it was great. A lot of positional points I could touch on here and congratulations on winning. So, 2 games in 34 minutes, but those were 2 long games. And the next game is by Donor. Alright, let me drink something and then we can rock on. Donor playing with the black pieces. Let's get it on. I'm not sure why this Kramnik-Carlsen game is included here, but I think I'll just ignore it. E6, C4, D5, D4, knight f6, G3, bishop E7, bishop G2, castle. So this is the Catalan. I don't know much about this, but this seems to be all theory. Bam, 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 bam. Queen A4, E5. So this is a long theoretical line that I learned from Jan's videos. I'm sure Jan will be happy. I think white is supposed to go d takes e5 here, so after queen takes e4, I already forgot everything. Okay. Well, e takes d4 looks completely sensible. This would be the first move I would consider as well. Maybe bishop h3 is another move to think about. But, okay, d takes e4 looks fine, or e takes d4, I'm sorry. Queen takes d4 and you win back the pawn here on e2 and have some nice play on the dark square. So I think black has already equalized here. Knight c3, queen f3, queen f4. When I was calculating queen f3, I felt like I was a bit better due to light square control. I do have weak pawns, so I could not decide whether I had objective reasons to play for a win. Queen f3 pretty much forces exchange of queens, and then black can't lose with such a bishop. Should black play for a win here? You should always play for a win, if you can. But yeah, why not? Keep the queens on the board. There's so much potential here for you with your strong bishop. And queen f3 doesn't force the exchange of queens. You can just remove the queen here, and you're also giving a little inaccuracy sign after bishop b7. I would have probably played queen c7 here, or at least considered it. Of course, now you're threatening bishop h3 as well as probably bishop b7, so white has to play f3. And look at white's king position in comparison to your king position. We talked about this in the first game today in the show. King safety is such an important factor, and your king is so much safer. And in general, in positions with different colored bishops, the side who has the less safer king, let's put it this way, is in trouble. So here you have the safer king, or rather white has the less safer king, so you can attack white with the different colored bishops and really put up some pressure. Just put the bishop on b7, and this is a long-term advantage here, long-term pressure for you, I would say. Of course, white is not lost here, but I think this is pretty unpleasant for white. I would certainly consider keeping the queens on the board. But even after bishop b7, yeah, you're absolutely right. You have a beautiful bishop here on the long diagonal. Bishop f4, c6, okay. Rook fe1, rook fe8, king f1, and knight d5. Yeah, I'm not sure if I would exchange knights necessarily here. Okay, white is probably ready to play something. Rook takes e8? Not sure. But you could also just play a move like h6 and just see what's going on. Maybe consider g5 in some situations. To take the knights off the board, it feels like to me you take some winning potential off the board. And the position maybe becomes a little bit simplified. Of course, still a lot to play for, but I would rather keep the knights on the board. Okay, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5. I considered taking with the pawn here, but I felt like it would be more of a weakness long term, since the bishop has a hard time defending and staying active due to f3 in the future. Plus, white can create a passed pawn of their own. Should I have taken with the pawn? Yeah, rook e3 is kind of a problem, really. Yeah, so this whole knight d5, I have to say, I'm not happy about. Okay, bishop takes d5, b3, and now f6. Rook e3, rook takes e3, bishop takes e3. Yeah, here probably I would have just played bishop f3 back, just to make it a little bit harder for white to get his king into play. But it probably doesn't matter a lot. It seems to me that the position is just equal here, and the advantage you might have had is gone. Maybe there wasn't too much to it anyway after you entered the endgame, but it seemed more pleasant to you, and now there's just not much going on. A5, King E2, A4, B4. Here I had a chance to play A3, but I could not evaluate if it would be a long-term strength to fix A2 or if A3 will be a weakness. Yeah, you should... I'm pretty sure you should go A3 here. I'm pretty sure. Because look at this. Your pawn, how can white attack it? Only in one way. Bishop C1 pretty much, right? The king will never be able to attack it. And okay, the other way would be bishop C5 and I'm playing B5, but then already white gives up a pawn. And what is happening now? The bishop is pawning on A2. So the rook is tied to defending this pawn. So the rook cannot leave A1 at any moment. You cannot imagine a scenario where the rook can leave really the A1 square right now. It's like it's completely tied to this pawn. So I think that would have been a great chance for you here to play for a win. Whenever the rook leaves A1, you can take on A2. I mean, of course, white can consider something like rook C1, bishop takes A2, and rook takes C6. But then, of course, you get this pawn on A2. And you can keep trying from here. Objectively speaking, probably a draw, but this is giving you chances here, no doubt. So when it comes to playing such a move like A3, you want to consider, is it a strength or a weakness? And if it's a weakness, how can white attack it, right? And if you maybe had asked yourself this question here, you could have seen that white really cannot butter his pawn too much. So I think it was a great chance. Bishop C4 check, King D2, still here. A3 of course would be possible. Rook D8 check, King C3, Bishop B5. Okay, this all doesn't seem to do much. Yeah, and this game is just petering out to a draw now. Okay, yeah, I think that was kind of a... You had some missed chance here, maybe not too big of an advantage, but have the courage. It felt like you were a little bit too afraid here to go for more. First in a position when you exchange queens, which seemed to be the safer option maybe, but you could keep the queens on the board and try to attack the white king. And then in the end game, when you had this unexpected option of going A3, and that would also give you a long-term advantage again, I would think. All right, thanks for sending in the game. I hope I could help out a little bit, and we'll go to the next one. And this is Hypomochlion against my colleague Jan. So let's bring it on. So it's probably a banter blitz game. So let's see, I try to avoid the open Sicilians. Does Mr. Gustafsson play the Sicilian tournament games nowadays? Mr. Gustafsson does a lot of things. I know he has played the Dragon in the past, but he knows a lot of stuff, obviously. But Sicilian is usually not his main weapon. Alright, let's go through the moves here. It is a closed Sicilian, Queen D2, Knight G7. Yeah, I like how this is going. Here, I don't think you need to take on G7 already. There's no need. You could also, for example, try something like H4 immediately and go H5 and something along those lines. Yeah. Then again, I don't know how strong this is, but it is an option. There's no need to take on G7 right away. Okay, takes, Knight G2, F6, H4, H5. See, this would be a difference, right? If you have played H4 first, still with the bishop in H6, black couldn't react in this way with H5. Knight D1, Bishop E6, Knight E3, B5, okay, F3, oh, this is interesting, preparing F3 and G4, quite interesting, G4, okay, Rook H8, and now queenside castle. And you're saying, I wasn't sure how to proceed. Short castle is obviously extremely dangerous. Long castle gives black a pawn with forward tempo, but maybe this is overstepping the possibilities of the position. Yeah, castling, just giving black this pawn, I'm not sure about. But then also, it might be difficult to recommend any other moves for you here. Okay, what about just taking an h5? If black takes with the h-pawn, of course, you can go f4 and this looks very nice for you. And if black takes with the rook, you can also go f4, or you can also play something like knight g3, the rook retreats, and now h5. And you want to kind of open up the square on f5 possibly for your knights. And want to open up the light square. So I would quite like this. G takes h5 and then follow with h5 and open up the light squares. If g5, for example, you would be quite happy to play bishop h3 and then have a beautiful square on f5. And what else can black do? Probably continue here with his moves, so maybe knight d4. No, knight d4 is not doing anything really. And now I think it would be a different story. Now you could think about castling queenside and then h takes g6, and you're going to be quite quick with your attack against black here as well. So g takes h5 look good to me. Bishop takes a2, and still here, g takes h5. But okay, f4 also interesting. But maybe g takes h5 first. Yeah, why not? Here, rook takes once again, followed by h5. Looks promising. And good chance definitely in a blitz game. But also f4 looks very interesting. a4 and now f5. Still g takes h5 I would really consider. And opening up the files there. f5 I'm not sure. I thought this would give me some attacking prospects on the king side, but the computer is not impressed. Yeah, I would rather like to see g takes h5 like I said. But maybe here already this is not working out as beautifully anymore, because you have played f4, so maybe one move earlier. This plan with f5, not sure. It's maybe a little bit slow, not sure. b3, but this is getting very interesting here. Yeah, f takes g6 and queen a5. In this position I was extremely worried regarding my own king's safety. Maybe I should just carry on with my attack on the king side. It was an extremely clever defensive move I overlooked. You play queen c3. Well, first you need to identify what is black threatening. And I don't think black is threatening anything right now. Bishop takes b3. Let's say you play any move like g takes h5. Bishop takes b3, you can just take a2, just play king b2, and everything is under control as far as I can tell. So maybe you could have ignored it. Yeah, of course, playing against a Jan, being a little bit afraid here is completely understandable. Then the question is, how would you ignore it? Would you play g takes h5, or maybe a move like knight f5 here and open up this bishop? That looks interesting, but also this all looks also pretty crazy, one has to say. And I'm not sure really what your next moves here are. Maybe knight f5 is not the smartest way to go about this. You could also think about knight c3 and just taking off the bishop on a2. Let's say black plays some move. I don't know what black would play. Because really, how is black going to make progress here? It's also the question, yeah? Knight c3 makes a lot of sense to not allow black to move this knight overall at all. But I'm just looking at it here, black also cannot move the knight. So I think you could have just moved on with your attack. All right, queen c3 takes g4. h5, knight bc6. You're saying queen a1 is a little bit greedy, isn't it? No, be greedy. Nothing wrong with that. Go for the bishop. Go for the bishop. Why not? Black probably needs to play knight b4 back. What else? Right? Knight d4. You can just... I'm not sure if you should take though. That could be a little bit dangerous because it opens up the c file. Yeah, maybe knight d4 is a tiny problem here. Knight takes d4, takes d4. But even this is certainly interesting. Now you're hitting also the rook on a8. And yeah, this also looks quite promising. Maybe even h6 here is quite a strong move. Great game. I really like these variations. But play queen a1. Be greedy. If it works, then it works and you win. Or you force black at least to play knight b4 back when you can even consider moves like c3 here. Okay, so you exchange queens. Now you go for the knight, for the bishop. Yeah. This is still all hugely complicated. You give knight c3 a question mark. Yeah, I don't like the queen's exchange really. Okay, what else here? Knight takes g4 maybe? Okay, knight c3 doesn't look too bad though. And now king d2. Yeah, this also looks pretty good. a2 and now rook a1, but knight f5 would have been just tremendous here. Just winning on the spot, yeah? This looked like a natural move to play. Rook a1 you're talking about. The computer gives knight f5, but after takes, the situation seemed to be locked at the king side. Well, don't forget, you're up a piece after all, and you're also controlling the a8 square. So you have some time here, and you can then follow up with rook a1. You also control d5. This position looks quite promising. Of course, still not completely clear. We have to look at moves like rook a3. But you also have some options here. I mean, let's just consider one sample line I'm just looking at here. This, check, king g8 and knight d5, and even allowing black to queen because you're checkmating first, and this just looks like winning on the spot here. Because of knight takes f6, and if black takes, then, well, g7 and g8 queen, checkmate. Knight f5 was a great chance, I think, for you. Of course, the position remains complicated, but what's important is that you're stabilizing your pawns on the king side, and you're opening up this bishop on g2. All right, rook a1, rook a3. And maybe still, even here, knight f5, you could consider. But of course, now you've lost the tempo. Knight c2. Around here, I was in serious time pressure. My position against Mr. Gustafsson is going downhill very fast. Yeah, to play this position with not a lot of time is quite difficult. Takes, knight d1, rook a8. Yeah, and I think there's not much we can do now against all those pawns, whereas your pawns here are not being so active. And this is nice tactic here by Jan playing b3. It's a great game. I really like this. b2, yeah. And now black's just up a bunch of pawns and it's all over. Thanks for sending this in. I hope I could provide some insights here. But fascinating game. Okay, 6 minutes. Do we have a quick game? Let's see. Do we have anything quick here? Oh no, both games are like 60 moves. What is this? No, this is not looking great. Let me see if I can find a quick game in the settings real quick. But otherwise we probably have to call it a day. let's see. How long is this game? 40 moves. Also a bit long. Yeah. I think it doesn't make sense to rush through one game here in like 5 minutes. That would just not be fair, especially when I spent about 15 to 20 minutes on the first 2 games. So how about in those last 5 minutes? Isolate Pawn is saying his game was just 24 moves. Okay, hold on. Okay, if you're asking for an Isolate Pawn, then let's do it. Let's go through it. A rapid 30 minutes no increment game between Isolate Pawn and Ambitious Pawn. Funny names, and they're also quite active both in the chat and watching my videos here or the show. So yeah, I'm very happy to look at this game. It's just unfortunate we only have about 5 minutes or so. So let's go through this. Knight c6, bishop c4, and both players have commentated, looks like. IP have been starting the series on the Italian game by Mr. Sarich, so I was quite happy to see this opening, and he plays h6, a bit of a surprise. Yeah, this is not the main move, of course. Bishop c5 or knight f6 at this point. h6, I can't really believe. You know, in the opening, you're supposed to develop your pieces. Castle, knight f6, d3. Sarich actually advised to play d4 directly. Yeah, and why not? h6 didn't really help black a lot, and this just seems to be a very good version of the position where white has still the king on e1, the pawn for black is on h7. E takes d4, you're saying e5, d5, bishop b5, knight d7, the position is equal. I would be surprised here. White plays rook e1, takes on c6, wins back the pawn d4. Not even sure if h6 is really helpful. Okay, d3, bishop c5, c3. So now it's just a normal Italian game. You haven't really capitalized on this h6 move by your opponent. I'm talking to isolate pawn here. So it seems the opening went okay for black. a4. Yeah, that's a typical idea. Threatening b4 as well. a6, rook e1, bishop g4, knight bd2. Yeah, actually, you're talking about playing h3 first. And I think this is actually a better way to do it if you want to do this maneuver. Now knight f1, knight g3, because black is already committing to putting a bishop on one diagonal or the other, right? The bishop on g4 cannot, the bishop on h5 cannot go back to the c8, h3 diagonal here. Whereas the way you're doing it, or maybe you're not doing it, I'm not sure, but yeah, maybe you're doing it. Bishop a7, knight f1. Now after knight g3, h3, the bishop can, for example, return to e6. The engine still believes in h2, h3, and so do I. To me, there doesn't seem to be any concrete variation that makes me believe h2, h3 is better. Well, there's not a big difference, I would say, between the two moves. Knight e7, knight g3, c6, h3, d5. Well, bishop e6, and you're saying that black blew the opening here. Oh no, black is saying that ambitious pawn. But really, not much has happened, honestly. Just go bishop e6 or bishop d7 and you're not doing too badly. d5, okay, this seems quite ambitious. Bishop b3, the pawn e5 is hanging, so black has to take on f3, and yeah, this is quite nice if black needs to take. Now, so there's also the threat of bishop takes h6. Knight g6, okay, need to close position, pray for isolated pawn to disconnect. Yeah, this is probably not easy. Now white has the square on f5, so really it seems, like you pointed out yourself, that d5 was not the way to go. Just move the bishop back, let's say to e6, and you're really not doing too badly here. It seems like a rather normal Italian game position. This is already losing. The bishop one is already considering harikari. He should have gone for it. Spare him the shame of blundering the queen later on. Okay, I'm not sure what this is referring to. Anyways. Alright, bishop knight g6, knight f5, king h7, and rook a2. I didn't really know how to continue here, so I decided to develop my least active piece. I'm aware that bishop on c1 is still undeveloped, but I actually like where it is. Yeah, the bishop doesn't need to be developed if you can get the rook into a game like that. With rook a2, you have the possibility of going to d2 if black opens up the center. I mean, one other, I think, standard idea would be to go something like h4, h5 to see what's going on here and to push this knight back. That looks tempting to me. But also, then again, I also like rook a2. So, also seems fine. But h4, because h5 is quite difficult to stop for black. Black doesn't want to play h5 himself. That would give white the g5 square for the bishop. And then you can just play h5 the next move. Okay. D takes e4, D takes e4, knight g8. This looks very passive. AP is running out of ideas. Yeah, the position is difficult. Of course, the queen is tied to the d file. And I don't like d takes e4. Why are you opening up the e file? This is just helping your opponent to put a rook on d2, right? But then again, of course, you might be asking, what else can I play? And it is true. It is true. It is difficult. Yeah, it is difficult already. So d takes e4 not maybe doesn't make a difference. D takes e4, knight g8, rook d2, queen f6. But rook d6 here already, yeah? Why not rook d6? I think I have an ideal position here, knight, bum 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 bum. But why not rook d6 just come to d6? Isn't this winning a queen almost? Or is there still a trick with knight h4 here? But even knight h4 I can just move out of the way, and now it looks like black is just losing. Unless I'm missing something. Rook d6 is just winning the queen. Guys? Okay. Anyways. Rook d6 seemed to be quite possible. Rook ed1, knight f4, and now rook d7. I briefly looked at rook d6. Why not the move before, right? But okay, rook d7 was played. But yeah, rook d6 also seems to just win the queen again, or at least win a piece here after h4. Oh no, there's still queen h5, but queen h5 just g4. And now the queen is indeed out of squares, so okay. Well, anyway, you like rook d7 better, but this is not as forcing. You're not attacking anything big, right? You're attacking the pawn on b7, of course. This is also just winning, but rook d6 seemed easier. Rook fd8. Yeah, but it probably didn't matter. Rook d6 seems hard to stop. White is so active. Everything is dropping. There's just no salvation for black here. Rook takes f7. Takes d1, queen takes d1, and queen h4. Queen g5 was, I guess, the only move, but okay, it all doesn't matter here. Queen h4, knight takes h4. Ambitious realizes that all hope is gone. He resigns in total shame. He may never play chess again. Well, it wasn't that bad. It just went downhill with d5, and then you couldn't really come back from that. But a cute little game, and thanks to you guys for sending in. It was quite awesome that you both contributed to this analysis, and you're really making, it seems, good use of this feature here that you both put in your comments. So good stuff. All right. So that should be it. So I could analyze the 5 games. It's my usual count. Just a lot of long games today. But as always, I hope you guys got something out of it, took something away. I know I'm talking quite quickly because, yeah, I want to get through as many games as possible, as always in those shows, but it's just always too many games to cover. But I'm kind of seeing the end of the tunnel, maybe a few more shows, and I can cover all the games that have been sent to me, but then there are always new games coming in. It's just a never-ending run, in a way. All right. I hope you guys have a great Monday night or great Monday afternoon or wherever you are in the world, and talk to you soon. Goodbye.